missing quite a few people at the moment, so we'll just give them another minute or two and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to review day, Friday finally. So you've got essentially 5 more days if you're only taking math to finish up for the summer. So it's crunch time. What we are going to be doing today is talking a lot about strategies for the exam and going over as many problems as we possibly can. Yesterday I had posted on Google Classroom a link or a post that you could comment on to give problems that you wanted to go over. Currently that post is blank, and which is kind of disappointing. So what I'm going to do is there are a couple of them that I want to go over just from things that I have noticed and things that I have thought of, and then we'll get to problems that you want to go over. So you could, I would prefer if possible if you use that post rather than the chat, because that post stays. The chat, like if people start asking questions, the stuff gets pushed to the bottom, so then it's hard to keep track of what questions you want to go over. So take a minute now while I set up the questions that I want to set up and go over with you to go onto Google Classroom to post and say either a topic or a question number from the assignments or from the review problems or whatever that you want to go over, and we can go over them, okay? Still blank. So Roots and Radicals is part of the curriculum. I hear what you're saying, but it's part of the curriculum, so I covered it. Okay, so while you're still posting some stuff, if there are any questions, posted in the chat on the side. If there are problems that you want to go over, topics that you want to go over, post it on the Google Classroom. The first thing that I want to go over is the following. this problem right here. So this is if you're working forwards. Now, what do these brackets represent? They are not just brackets. They represent the greatest integer of something. So nothing can be done until I do this little calculation here. So 21,570 divided by 3,000 gives me 7.19. What is the greatest integer of 7.19? Seven. Your calculator will not do this for you. You need to do this manually and by hand. And then you can do this calculation once it's taken out of the brackets. Let's do another one. When I do this multiplication, 5,289, I get negative 52.89. This means greatest integer. This gets dropped to negative 53. And then you can multiply negative 53 times negative 3 over 4, and that gives you a final answer of 39.75. So your final answer can be a decimal depending on this value, but this bracket means whatever comes out of here cannot be a decimal. The question just asked, it was on the sit prob, right? The answer is yes. There are no class 15 notes. We're just going over stuff. Notes are for new material. There are no notes. This is just us going over stuff. So I need to stress this point, and there are two reasons I need to stress this point. One, this kind of mistake where you don't take the greatest integer of something, that comes from not having practiced it and checking your answers. Because if you had done practice problems on greatest integer function, you may still have made this mistake, but there would be a way less chance of you doing it. We just did two examples of the calculation for greatest integer. You can't do it on your calculator. All you do is you take the greatest integer using your brain. So if it's positive, you just drop the decimal, so 7.19 becomes 7. And if it's negative, it goes to the negative behind. So negative 52.89 becomes negative 53. So you have to do that manually. Your calculator will not do it. If you just type this in, your calculator will give you an error. Or your calculator will give you the decimal number. So this kind of issue comes from lack of practice and lack of exposure to this type of problem. 100%. That is what this is. So when I've been stressing doing your homework and doing the assignments, and I'm noticing a trend in this class in particular where assignments aren't getting done, that's where this type of mistake would be fixed. That's why you practice the problems. So there was a high correlation between the number of people that made this mistake and the number of people I'm noticing doing their homework. Now, I'm not saying that's a general rule, like you could be doing your homework and still could have made this mistake. That does happen, but you're way less likely to do it if you're exposing yourself to these type of problems. So the goal between now and Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. is to do as many problems as possible, because the more you get used to doing the type of problems, the easier they become. So if you're not doing problems, it's not going to be easy, period. You may still pass, but it's not going to be easy. And it may not be the mark that you wanted. Don't waste the 3 weeks you just spent in summer school by not doing the problems and not preparing yourself properly for this exam. I'm telling you right now, you need to make your memory aid ASAP, like today, this afternoon, make your memory aid. And then between Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, you do as many problems as possible with whatever else you've got going on using your memory aid only, because that is the only way you're going to get prepared for this exam, is doing as many problems as possible. To make sure mistakes like this don't happen, or they're way less likely of happening. Because if you get this problem in a part B, and you have something like this, so 2892. So you get 28.92. If you don't use these brackets properly and you just multiply this by -5/4, you're going to get -36.15. If you do this properly, you get 28 times 5/4 and you get -35. If you give me this answer in a part B, I am powerless to help you. You have just lost yourself 4%. All because you didn't take the greatest integer of a number. Same thing with a part A question. If you get this in a multiple choice, they'll put that answer in to confuse you. 4% gone. And if you get this in a part C question, you're still losing points. It's not an all or nothing case scenario, but you're still losing points. So this type of issue gets fixed by exposing yourself to these type of problems and practicing them and checking your answers to see what you're doing wrong. So I've stressed it before, I'll stress it again. You need to be doing as many problems as possible between now and Tuesday morning. Don't waste the 3 weeks you spent in summer school by not preparing properly for this exam. Any questions on that? Can I scroll up? Now, I don't want you all panicking. The SIT-Prob, I've corrected some. They're going decently, so don't go panicking now. But just keep that in mind, okay? Can I flip now? Okay. This is the other thing that I'd like to clarify. Metric relations. This is the metric relations picture with the lines, the different side lengths given names, and the formulas according to this picture. So you may have seen this using different letters. That's fine, as long as your picture and these rules will be the same, as long as they correspond to your picture. Now, the thing I want to point out is the following. Yes, you have a right angle in here, but this is not metric relations unless you have a right angle up here. So just having a right angle down here is not enough. You have to see this up here. If you don't see this up here, these formulas don't mean anything to you. Okay? So that's just a quick clarification on metric relations. All right. Before I get to your questions, class 6 handout, number 51. Question is this one. Line segment DE is drawn such that the coordinates of its endpoints are D0, 24 and E24, 0. A point P is chosen on line segment DE, but P is not one of the endpoints. Line segment PR is drawn perpendicular to segment DE with endpoint R located on the x-axis. Below are two possible representations of segment PR. Formulate a conjecture describing the relationship between the x-coordinate of point R and the coordinates of point P for segments corresponding to the above description. This is like absolute worst case scenario type of question that you get on the exam. As soon as you see the word conjecture, know that you're in for a little bit of a difficult problem. So these come up rarely, but they have come up in finals in the past. You just have to know the process of how to do a conjecture problem because they're all so different that you're never going to know how to handle every one. Like there's no formula for it. There's no rule for it. It's not like, oh, I get a greatest integer function, I do these steps. Because conjecture problems is basically you're finding something. So when you have a conjecture problem, and you'll actually see the word conjecture in the problem, you take 3 cases and figure out the relationship. So 3 cases that you make up from your head. So here we have 2 endpoints. We are taking a point P, and then we're figuring out the point R. So we are basically, we're going to make up a P and find point R. And we're going to do this 3 times. When I say 3, this is non-negotiable. So let's take a look. I have DE, so I need to find the rule of DE so I can find a point P on that line. So slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I get 0 minus 24 over 24 minus 0. That gives me negative 24 over 24, which is 1. Okay, so the rule is negative x plus 24 because the 24 comes from this being the y-intercept. Now basically we have to do 3 different cases where we choose a point P and then we solve for R. So case number 1. When I say you make something up, you make something up. So I'm going to say P is 6 and 0. 6 and y. I'm going to need to find what the y is that goes with the 6 on that line. Okay, so I start off negative x plus 24 y is -6 plus 24, so y is 18. So P is actually 6 and 18. You with me so far? The slope is -1, yes. I plugged in as -1. Line PR is perpendicular, so it has a slope of +1. So now I'm going to use the 6 and 18 to find the B. So the B is 12. So y equals x plus 12. And then I'm going to find point R. Well, point R is the x-intercept. So that means when y is 0. So -12 is my x. So I have -12 and 0. So what you are doing is you're comparing (6 and 18) and -12 and 0. So there are so many different things that you could do to figure out how we could find a relationship between these two. So you don't bother until you do case number 2. So case number 2, you choose P. Maybe I'm going to make it 20 and a y. I don't care. Y equals -x plus 24. Y equals -20 plus 24. So y is 4. So for P, we get 20 and 4. So now we're going to find the rule of PR, slope of +1. So you're doing the same steps for each 3 cases, just involving different numbers. So you have 20 plus B, 4 equals 20 plus B. So I move this over, and B is -16. So now I want to find point R, which happens when y is 0. So 0 equals x minus 16. So 16 is x. So we have 16 and 0. So now we are comparing 20 and 4 and 16 and 0. Now, based on our 2 different case scenarios, what do you notice? What kind of idea could we think about? What kind of relationship are we thinking about? Well, if you look at the bottom, 20 minus 4 gives you 16. And this coordinate is 0. Okay, let's see if it works for this one. Is 6 minus 18 -12? Yep, with this coordinate as 0. So now I'm starting to see some sort of pattern. But you cannot formulate your conjecture. So your idea is that P, XP, and YP, that the PX of the R point is going to be XP minus YP. So the 20 minus the 4 will give you the 16 for the X, for the R. And the 6 minus the 18 will give you the -12 for the R. So this is your idea. And now you need to test it for a 3rd case scenario, just to make sure that your idea is on the right track. Because 2 can be a coincidence, 3 is a pattern. Case 3, I don't care what you choose. P could be, so what did we choose? We chose 6 and we chose 20. Maybe it's 13. Who cares? y equals negative x plus 24. Y equals negative 13 plus 24. So y is 11. So we have 13 and 11. So now we need line PR. Y equals x plus b. 11 equals 13 plus b. So b is negative 2. And point R happens when y is 0. So 0 equals x minus 2. So x is 2. So we're comparing thirteen and 11 and 2 and 0. Does our relationship work? Is xr equal to xp minus yp? Well, is 2 equal to 13 minus 11? Yes. So our relationship is that we have p, which is xp yp, and we're going to have r, which is xp minus yp and 0. This is like worst case scenario of question you can get. My fingers are crossed for you that you don't get it, but these do tend to come up every once in a while, so you need to be prepared for that. So even if you can't for some reason find the relationship, that's the hardest part of this. You need to at least do the 3-case thing. Okay, so if you can just make up 3 random cases and test them, you'll get a lot of points for that, even if you can't find the relationship. So it's important that you do the 3 cases thing. You will not get full marks. Even if you find the relationship, you will not get full marks unless you test 3 different cases. Is this clear for everybody? Are there any questions? Okay, cool. So we'll do a couple of roots and radicals question. We won't focus too much on it, but we will do a couple. So we're gonna look at handout number 1. So we'll do handout number 1, number 14. The problem is what I would find the hardest and what you would find the hardest aren't necessarily the same. So we're just gonna do 1 multiplication, 1 division, and 1 addition. So if there's any that you see in particular that you'd like to go over, feel free to flag me down and tell me that that's the one you'd prefer to go over. But essentially, as long as you can do the multiplication, the division, addition, subtraction, and stuff like that, you're fine. So if there are no objections, we'll do number 14. We'll start here. Okay. So remember here we put our coefficients together. So 2 times 5 is 10. X times x is x squared. And then I'm going to put everything under the root together. So I get 8. 2 and 4 gives me 8. X squared and x gives me, I'm going to leave it as x squared times x. And here the y and the y squared, I'm going to leave it as y and y squared, because remember, we can only take out things that are perfect squares or pairs. So 10x squared, I can take out First of all, I'm going to rewrite 8 as 2 and 4. So now I can take out anything that's a perfect square or anything that has an exponent of 2. So this 4 can come out. The square root of 4 is 2. This x squared can come out. We divide the 2 by 2 and we get just x. So this is out, this is out. And this y can go out and it comes out as y to the 2 divided by 2, which is just y. And then I'm left with 2xy on the inside. Now all I have to do is simplify this. 10 times 2 is 20. X squared times x is x cubed. The y just stays, and I have 2xy. So remembering you can only take something out of the root if it's a perfect square number. And if it's an exponent or if it's a variable, sorry, the exponent has to be even. So that's multiplication. We can do a division. We'll do number 19. So 19, we'll start off by just separating things. So 125 is 5 times 25. X to the 10 is even. Y to the 6 is even. Z5 can be written as Z4 times Z. $900 can be written as 9 times 100. X to the 5 can be written as X4 and X1. Y3 can be written as Y and Y squared, and Z12 is just Z12. Now I'm going to take everything out that I can. So 25, the square root of 25 is 5. X to the 10 comes out as X to the 10 divided by 2, which is X to the 5. So this is gone, this is gone. Y to the 6 divided by 2 is Y to the 3. Z to the 4, it comes out as Z to the 4 divided by 2, which is Z to the 2. And then here I'm left with 5Z over the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 100 is 10. X to the 4 comes out as X squared. X can't come out. Y can't come out. Y squared comes out as a single Y. And then this comes out as Z to the 6. And we're left here with an X and a Y. So then this stuff I can put together. So 5 over 30 is going to give me 1 over 6. X to the 5 and X squared gives me X to the 3 on the top. Y to the 3 and Y gives me Y squared on the top. Z to the 2, Z to the 6 gives me Z4 on the bottom. And here we're just going to leave this as this for a second. Now the issue that we have, remember, is that we cannot have any roots on the bottom. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to multiply this by whatever the root is to get rid of it. So what this gives me is I end up with x3, y2. This goes together as 5xyz. On the bottom, we end up with 6xyz4. And then these can be reduced again. So I end up with x squared y, 5xyz, over 6z to the 4. one's too easy. We'll do number 20. The first one, I missed part of it, sure. No problem. Okie dokie. So here we have this addition, so we can only add like terms. But in each of these things, oh, this isn't going to end up being anything. That's okay. Let me just see if there's a better one. Yeah, let's take a look at 23. When I multiply the top, because the x and the y were underneath the root, so they have to stay under the root. But here, when I multiply xy times xy, this just leaves me with xy. So that's why it joined the things on the bottom outside of the root, but on the top it stays under. Okay, so here at first glance, you can't do anything. But before you see if you can or can't, you have to reduce this. So I can write this as 3x squared times x and the y squared. Now this x squared can come out as a single x, and this y squared can come out as a single y, and the root of x is just left. Now we need to look. I need to add this with this, pretending this isn't existing to me right now. So what is 3xy minus 5xy? And I'm just going to leave this there. Well, because they're both xy's, I could just make this negative 2xy root of x. Good? Okay. Okie dokie. So that was radicals, distance point to line. So this is going to be on class 6. So class 6 handout. At the back where it says distance point to line, number 8. Given the endpoints A, B, and C are the vertices of triangle ABC, calculate the length of altitude AH from vertex A. So just draw a quick sketch. Doesn't matter what your triangle looks like. It'll just help you get a visual of this. So if you call this A, call this B, and I call this C, obviously not drawn to scale or properly. What I am looking for is altitude AH, which is the line here that drops. So I'm looking the distance from A to BC. So in order to do that, I have to find the rule of BC. So A is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I have 2 minus 6 over 6 minus 1. So that is negative 4 over 5. Y is negative 4 over 5x plus b. 6 is negative 4 over 5 times 1 plus b. So if I manipulate this, 6 plus 4 over 5 gives me, in a fraction, 34 over 5. So my rule is y equals negative 4 over 5x plus 34 over 5. Now, in order to do this calculation, I need this rule in general form. So the first thing I need to do is get rid of this denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So the 5 goes to the y. That gives me 5y. This 5 cancels with this 5, negative 4x. This 5 cancels with this 5, which gives me 34. Now I need to move all of this to this side so that one side is 0 and this term will become positive. So it becomes positive 4x plus 5y minus 34 equals 0. So far, so good? Okay, so I have distance is ax plus by plus c, all divided by a squared plus b squared. So I'm working with 2 and 1. So what this means is my a is 4, my b is 5, my c is negative 34, my x is 2, and my y is 1. So now I'm going to plug in all of these different values into my formula. A is 4, x is 2. B is 5, y is 1. C is negative 34. All over A and B, not x and y. 4 squared plus 5 squared. That gives me 8 plus 5 minus 34. 4 squared plus 5 squared gives me the root of 41. 8 plus 5 minus 34 gives me negative 21 over the root of 41. And those brackets just make this turn into positive. When I type this into my calculator, I get 3.28 units. How is this for distance point to line? A little bit of a review. Now remember, you can only use distance point to line when you have the perpendicular distance. So when it meets your thing at 90 degrees. I can slow down a bit. I'm just trying to get through as much as we possibly can. I will try. Is this good for distance points align? I'm taking your silence as a yes. So that's roots and radicals. Distance points align, adding, subtracting radicals. Half planes. Half planes. Yes. Distance point to line is only for perpendicular, yes. So these are the type of half plane questions that you could get. There might be a better one on here. Okay. On handout class 6, number 12. Half planes. So you have the rule. This is a type of question that comes up a lot. Given a rule, identify which half plane you're talking about. So here, you have different steps that you go through. One, you look if the line is dotted or solid and what it should be. So in this case, it should be dotted. So we don't actually get to eliminate any of the cases. That's fine. Now you want to look if it's graphed properly. Which ones are graphed properly? So I know that this is symmetric form, which means this number should be the x-intercept. So I look on the x-axis, negative 35 and negative 35. This is not good, and this one is not good. So now I'm going to test a point to see which region it should be in. So I'm going to test 0, 0. So I have 0 over negative 35 plus 0 over 45. Is this less than 1? Well, this gives me 0 plus 0. Is this less than 1? Yes. So 0, 0 should be in my shaded region. And see here, 0, 0 is in this shaded region. So B is my solution. Does that make sense? Do we need to see another? So for this one, here, 3x plus 2y is less than or equal to 12. Greater than or equal to 12. So I'm going to solve for the intercept. So 3x equals 12. So x, if I divide by 3, x is 4. So we have 4 and 0. And here we have 2y equals 12. So if I divide by 2, y is 6. So we have 4, 0, and 0, 6. Okay, so now I go on my line. I'm going to check to make sure these points are there. And I know from this that it should be solid line. So let's see what cases I can eliminate. So if I click on this, if I zoom in, so this is 4 and 6, and it's solid. This is also 4 and 6, and it's solid. This one's dotted, so I automatically eliminate it. And this one's dotted, so I automatically eliminate it. So I'm left with case scenario A or B. So now I go here and I'm going to test my point. Test 0, 0. So I have 3x plus 2y is greater than or equal to 12. So is 3 times 0 plus 2 times 0 greater than or equal to 12? Is 0 greater than or equal to 12? No. So 0, 0, not a solution. So 0, 0 should not be shaded. So I look for A and B. In A, 0, 0 is shaded. For B, it is not, so B would be my answer. Okay? The question is, how do we know when it's solid or dotted? If you have this symbol or this symbol, it's solid. If you have this symbol or this symbol, it's dotted. Okay, 2 other questions that I'd like to answer. Can we do converting from one form to another? Yes, I'll do that in a second. The other question is, how important is Mayer line? It's fair game. Like, I can't say what topic is more important than the other. You have to know how to do it. But if they give you a problem, they'll usually say predict the value, and they won't say, like, I don't know how many of you saw median line or the third way of doing it, but as long as you know Mayer line, you're fine. Converting from one form to another. I have this in general form, so I need 3 different pieces of information. I need the x-intercept. That happens when y is 0. So 3x minus 12 equals 0. (3x equals 12). So x is 4. Y-intercept happens when x is 0. So I have 2y minus 12 equals 0. 2y is equal to positive 12. And then I divide by 2. Y is 6. I also need the slope. Since this is in general form, the slope is negative a over b, which is negative 3 over 2. So from this, if I wanted symmetric form, which is x over a plus y over b equals 1, I have the x-intercept, which is 4. I have the y-intercept, which is 6. And I'm done. If I want functional, I have the slope, and I have the y-intercept. Given y equals how do we convert this to the other two? Well, I need the x-intercept, so I'm going to start there. So negative 25 is equal to 5 over 3x. So negative 75 is equal to 5x. So negative 15 equals my x. So straight up converting this, I get x over a plus y over b equals 1. I know that the y-intercept is negative 15. And I know that the x-intercept is negative 15 and the y-intercept is 25. That's my symmetric form. Now, if I'm converting this to general, I need to get rid of the denominator. So I multiply the whole equation by 3. So that gives me 3y equals, the 3's cancel out to leave me with just 5. 3 times 25 is 75. And this 3y moves over. And that's your general form. So form 1, form 2, and form 3. Finally, if you have this one, the slope from symmetric is negative b over a, which means it's negative 4 over 6, which reduces to negative 2 over 3. So straight up here, I can do functional form because I have the slope and I have the y-intercept. If I wanted to convert this to general form, I need to get rid of these denominators. So I'm going to multiply by a number that will reduce both of those numbers. So here, I can multiply by 12. So just to give you an idea what this looks like, the 12 will go here. The 12 will go here. and the 12 goes here. 12 over 6 is 2. 12 over 4 is 3. This gives me 12. I need one side to be 0, so I'm going to move this over. Any questions on that? The question on the side as of right now is we don't have to know median line. Don't worry about it. If you get a problem like that in a part C, it's kind of like a system of equations problem where they want you to do it, but they're not going to tell you which method to use. They'll just say solve this system. If you get one of those questions in a part C, they're just going to say solve it. They don't say using median, using Mayer, like they'll just do it. So we're at a dead space right now. There's nothing left on those questions and nothing in the chats. Which ones do you want to go over? I'll just start choosing if you don't. But I may choose something that you're all very comfortable with. So how about you choose a topic or choose a problem or choose an assignment, and we'll go over some problems to make sure you're good to go. I just showed you that. We did look at that. I saw your question and I answered it. This, if it has the line underneath, means it's a solid line. If it doesn't, it's a dotted. Okay. Which part of assignment 6? Number 1? Okay. If I'm not mistaken, we've done this one already in class. We'll take a look at it very quickly. So we've got this picture. We need to find the rule in symmetric form and then in general form. So like I said, I think we've done this before, so I'm going to go through it quickly. So in symmetric form, you have x over a plus y over b equals 1. So you need the a and the b. So the b would be 2, 4, 6. The A is -2 for -5. So this is symmetric form. Now I need to convert to general form. So I'm going to multiply by a number that is going to cancel them both out. So I'm going to choose 30. So the 30 goes here. The 30 goes here. And the 30 goes here. Now it reduces. 30 divided by -5 is -6. 30 divided by 6 is 5. And now in general form, one side has to be 0 and the A term has to be positive. As of right now, it's not. So I'm going to take this and throw it to the other side. 0 equals 6x plus 5y plus 30. Minus 5y, sorry about that, minus 5y. What do you mean y? Like when we are trying to find the rule for an exponential function, how do we know if we use y? Do you mean d or y? Is this the part that you're referring to? Okay. It's a very good question. When did we do exponential here? So this is class 10 handout. Go away. So here are two different questions, okay? So if we're doing question number 5, you bought a 6-year-old car used for $4,500, okay? Its value will decrease each year at a rate of 25% every 2 years. So your X is years and your Y is value of car in dollars, right? So if it says every 2 years, if it says something other than every year, every minute, every second, you have to use the D. So in that case, your A is what we start at. My C is 1 minus 25 over 100, which is 0.75. And since it says our X is in years and it says every 2 years, the D is 2. So we get Y equals 4,500, 0.75 to the X divided by 2. What will the value of your car be in 5 years? So X is 5. So I would just plug this in. So 0.75 to the power of 5 over 2. And when I multiply that, I get that in 5 years, my car will be worth $2,192.13. And then the part B of that question, how much did your car cost brand new? So if it's a 6-year-old car, We want to know how much it was worth 6 years ago, which means -6. This is doable. So I just plug in -6. And that gives me 0.75 to the -3. So my car was approximately worth $10,666.67. And C says, when will your car be less than $100? So just before we do that, the question is, could we, you can't make it increase for 6 years because you can't put 6 in because that means you're going 6 years in the future and your car's depreciating. If I'm going backwards, it's obviously increasing in value, right? Because if I'm going forward and it's decreasing, I go backwards, it's increasing. Okay, so you have to put the -6. Okay, so here I would divide by 4,500. So 100 divided by 4,500 gives me 1/45. We get to this point and we have to use our log relationship. So I drop this, x/2 equals log of 1/45, being careful to use brackets, and log of 0.75. And that gives me x/2 is 13.23. And if I multiply that by 2, you get after 26 years, your car will be worth less than $100. So it's the same thing for this question. If we just look at this question quickly. A certain type of fungus triples every 4 hours. So we know right away that our X is going to be hours and our Y will be number of fungus. Disgusting. I start with 25. I'm tripling, which means my C is 3, but it says every 4 hours. So as soon as it says every something hours or every something minutes, we have a D involved, and every 4 hours means 4. So my rule becomes AC to the x/d. So Y is 25, 3, x divided by 4. So the only difference in these problems is if you have a number here with your unit of time. Exactly. So if it says every year, then in theory, you're still using D, but D is 1. So it's irrelevant because x/1 is just x. So it's not that D isn't there. D is always there. But if it says every year, then it's just 1. So we don't have to put anything. So it says every year, every minute, every hour, every second. Then you don't use D. Okay? What else you got, guys? Anything here? Assignment 12, number 2. A game of chance, a flashing dot moves all over a wall screen. The screen is rectangular and gray. On the screen, there is a white right triangle, namely triangle QRS represented below. A player must place a bet to play this game. This game involves pressing a key on a computer keyboard to stop the flashing dot. The position of the flashing dot is determined at random by the computer. If the flashing dot is stopped in the white section, the player receives $10. If the flashing dot is stopped in the gray section, the player does not receive any money. The game is fair. How much money must the player bet to play this game? So I have two different case scenarios. I have either it lands in the white section or it lands in the gray section. So in order to do that, I need areas. So I'm going to deal with this triangle first. Now, because I see this and this, I can use metric relations. So if I do that, just like copying and pasting everything here. Since I see that, I can use metric relations on this. So this is where I'm going to start. So if I use metric relations, A, B, M, N, H, and C, what I need is I need the area of this shape. So I have that M is 36. I have my N is 64. My C is 36 plus 64. That gives me 100. Now, with metric relations, it's easy to get caught up in doing everything, but you only need certain things. So if I need the area, either I need A or B, or I need H and C. So I already have C, so let's get H. H squared equals MN. H squared is 36 times 64. 36 times 64 is 2304. And if I take the square root of that, I get that H is 48. So the area of RQS is a triangle. Base times height divided by 2 gives me 48 times 100 divided by 2, which gives me 2,400. I need the area of the rectangle, which is 80 by 150. So I have 80 and I have 150. That gives me 12,000. So the area of shaded is going to be 12,000 minus 2,400, which gives me 9,600. Is everyone with me on that? So in this case, the probability of white is going to be 2,400 divided by the total area, which reduces to 2 over 10. Or actually it reduces to 1 over 5 even. And the probability of shaded is this 9,600 divided by 12,000, which gives me 4 over 5. Is everyone clear how I got this? Okay, so now we're talking about the game. So the game, we make our table. A table will not be provided to you, so you will have to make a table. So you get outcome probability, net gain, product. So I have shaded and I have white. Well, I just figured out the probability. The probability of white is 1/5. And the probability of shaded is 4/5. So I go up to my net gain. And the net gain says, we're paying something, we don't know what the bet is. So our bet is going to be X. Okay? If it's in the white section, you get $10. If it's in the gray section, you don't get anything. So for shaded, if I land in the shaded area, I lose my bet because I'm not receiving any money and it doesn't say I get to keep my bet. If it lands in the white, I receive $10, but I have to subtract what I actually paid for the game. So my product here becomes 4/5 times negative x, which is negative 4x/5. And this product becomes negative 1/5 times 10 minus x. And that gives me 10 minus x/5. So far, so good? Game is fair, which means that the expected value is 0. So I take these two numbers and I sum them up. Negative 4x/5 plus 10 minus x/5 equals 0. And then I'm going to use my denominator trick, where the 5 cancels out here to leave me with negative 4x. The 5 cancels out here, which leaves me with 10 minus x. And 5 times 0 is 0. These go together. Whoops. So that gives me negative 5x plus 10. If I move the 5x over, it becomes positive. And I could divide by 5. My brain's already at the answer, which gives me 2. So in order for this game to be fair, we have to bet $2. EV stands for expected value. So the definition of a fair game is when your expected value is 0, remembering that your expected value is the sum of the product column. We're at another standstill, no questions. We still have 20 minutes. There are 23 of you. No one has a question that you want to go over. Come on, guys. I find that hard to believe. You can post it in the chat, post it on this. Let's go, let's go. If not, I'll just take the questions that the other class asked me. Let's do that. We don't want to ask our own questions. We'll just take the questions the other class asked. All right, that's fine. Okay, so actually, another question that we had started together that someone had asked me but we never finished was this question. Open. Oh, you're gonna be a big pain today. This one, the Spanish English thing. So we'll actually go through this problem. We stopped because at that point we hadn't finished conditional probability. Okay, so we'll take a look at it now, and then we'll go to the questions that the other class asked because we can't come up with our own questions, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. All right, so we started this. A travel agency would like to know what language the people taking their tours are capable of speaking. The survey reveals the following results. So we'll just start from scratch, okay? So we make our Venn diagram, which needs to be bigger. And we'll make our circles. So do we all remember starting this problem? And yes, we can. As soon as I'm done this, I'll do assignment 10, number 3. So English, Spanish, French. 6 people can communicate in all 3 languages. 6 goes in here. 38 people can communicate in French. We'll use that in a second. 10 people can communicate in English or French, but not Spanish. English, French, but not Spanish. 20 people can communicate in Spanish only. 8 people can communicate in French or Spanish, but not English. 12 people cannot communicate in any of these languages. So now we can figure out this part of it because we know that it all should add up to 38. So 38 minus 6 minus 8 minus 10 gives me 14. So there should be 14 in this French section right here. Now we have 2 other pieces of information. The probability that a person cannot communicate in any of these 3 languages is equal to 1/8. So the probability of no language, well, not no language, but like none of these 3, is 1/8. I know that I have 12 people that can communicate in none of these languages, but I don't know how many people there are total. So I can solve that up right away. So I have 96 people total. So I'm still missing this part here and this part here. When a person can communicate in Spanish, the probability they can also communicate in English is 5/19. What that represents is they're saying the probability of English given that they can speak Spanish. So we know this to be the number of their intersection divided by the number of Spanish. So I know that this is 5/19. How many people do I have in their intersection? I have X, we'll call this X, plus 6. And how many people are there in Spanish? Well, 20 plus 8 plus 6 plus X. You know when your brain says something and then you start to write something else? That's what keeps happening to me. So I get 5 over 19 equals x plus 6 over x plus 34. Now this is just a cross multiplication. So 5x plus 34 equals 19x plus 6. So here I get 5x plus 170 and 19x plus 6 times 19, 114. So I move this over and this over. So 170 minus 114 gives me 56. And 19 minus 5 gives me 14. So I divide by 14, and that gives me x is 4. Okay? So this x here is 4. Now I can find out how many people are in that section because I know that there are 96 total. So I have 96 minus all of the different numbers, 12, 20, 4, 6, 8. And 14. So if I do that, we get 22. So there are 22 people here. Now the question is actually asking me, what is the probability that a person can communicate in English or French? So English or French, is this you? Or? So the question is, can we go over the signs? The two most important signs are these ones. This one means or, so we're summing. This one means and, so it's the intersection. Needs to be in both. So then I need English and French. So English or French, sorry, is anything that's in English or in French. So here I get 22 plus 4 plus 6 plus 10. Plus 8 plus 14. That gives me 22 plus 4 plus 6 plus 10 plus 8 plus 14 gives me 64. So the probability of English or French is 64 over the total, which is 96. And this reduces to 2 over 3. Okay, assignment 10, number 3. Open. Okay. You have 4 different games, and you need to know which one of them offers the greatest probability of winning. So you need to convert whatever information you have to the probability of winning. So game 1, winning is 8 over 11. So we need them all to look like that. Game 2, losing is 6 over 11. So winning is going to be 1 minus 6 over 11, which is 5 over 11. Y'all with me so far? Game 3, odds 4 are 7 to 4. So odds of winning, which means winning, is 7 over 7 plus 4, which is 7 over 11. Game 4, the odds against, which means the odds of losing, are 5 to 6. That means odds 4, you flip them, 6 to 5. So winning is going to be 6 over 6 plus 5, which is 6 over 11. So which of these games offers the greatest probability of winning? Game 1, actually. Five more minutes, last minute problems. We have 4 minutes or so. Is there anything you want to go over? 4 or 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I have my laptop that you see, and then I have a Chromebook beside me. So on the Chromebook, it's a good question. On the Chromebook, I have what you see. So that's the training one is actually me. So I have that open to make sure that what you see is good. And then I have the chat open as well. So I can see the chat side by side. Assignment 8, number 1 or 2. Okay. So we did number 2. We'll do number 1. And this will be our last one just to wrap us up. Okay, a company calculates the salary of its employees according to the levels of seniority. So remember with these problems, we do a quick sketch. So we're just going to do the step function for the raise only. So it says 2 years, we get 1 level of seniority. So if I'm at 0 years, I don't get a raise. Up until I get to 2 years, and then I get a $3,000 raise. And then when I get to 4, I get a $3,000 raise. So I can pretty much get my rule now. So B is positive because the step looks like this. My length is 2, so B is 1 over 2. It is increasing, so A and B are the same sign. And A, so A is going to be positive, and A is the difference here. This should be 6,000, which is 3,000. So my rule is y equals A b to the x. So y equals 3,000, 1 over 2 to the x. What is the salary of an employee with 15.6 years experience? So I plug in 15.6. 15.6 divided by 2 gives me 7.8. We use our greatest integer brackets. 7.8 becomes 7. And that's my raise is 21. So the salary is 21,000 plus the base salary of 35,000, which is 56,000. Okay. Then they want to know how many years experience must an employee have if they get paid 89,000. So I'm going to take the 89 and I'm going to minus the base salary, which is 35. And that gives me 54,000. That's what I'm going to plug into my step function. Divide by 3,000. We get 18. And remember, we drop the brackets. Bring this up. This is my solid dot. The step goes like this and has a length of 2. So the solid dot, I add 2. And that gives me 38. Okay. So, congratulations, class is now over. Things to remember for the exam. Make your memory aid, like today. As many problems as you can go over. Start with the assignments. Then start with the handouts. In this folder here, if you go to the About, in the Review Exams and Solutions, I added some notes and some problems on trig, triangles, and systems. So just to refresh your memory for like congruence and similarity and review packages and stuff like that. So go over that. Go over as many problems as you can. I will be giving you feedback on assignment 11, 12, and 14 within the next 2 days. So please try and complete some of those. Other than that, problems. And if you have any issues, send me an email over the next 3 days. Otherwise, I will see you on Tuesday morning with your ID. Remember, picture ID that you need to bring for your exam, along with your memory aid and your writing implements and all that stuff. Please, please, please email me if you have absolutely any questions at all. I will try to answer your emails as soon as possible. Just one question before we went was, whenever a number is in a square bracket, does that mean we find the greatest integer? Yes, it does. Are there any other questions before you leave? All right, have a great weekend. Good luck, prep hard, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.